Hello, Jamie from Inky and Scrappy, joining you today on the Crescent Creations channel, sharing with you a new card slash ornament. It's a twofer, 2-for-1. So I'm starting with a piece of 8.5 by a little over 4, so I'd say 4.25 inch cardstock. I'm taking my largest inside out stitched circle from Lawn Fawn here and cutting it just above that fold line for my card base. Granted, you could make this ornament, put a piece of pattern paper on a regular A2 size base, and then just attach the ornament to the front to be removed later. So if you don't want to do a circle card, that is an option for this one. Or if you just want to do the ornament, is another option for this one. So because I use 120-pound accent opaque cardstock here, I ended up just going in with my scissors and kind of making that final cut on that second layer. If I'd have probably run it through the die cut machine one more time and moved it on my cutting pad, it probably would have cut all the way through, but I did not check it before I removed it, so it is what it is. So once I have that one cut, I had also went and used my circle border stack or frames from Lawn Fawn, and I haven't cut mine apart yet, so I just cut out the whole thing from all of those layers of cardstock and then using that holographic paper from Crescent Creation for my top layer in my shaker base, I guess you could say. So I glued all of those together. I want to say I did 7 layers of that 110 to or 120 to 100-pound cardstock. I just grabbed what I had laying on my desk. So it wasn't all the same paper, but it makes for a nice deep well when using that extra heavy cardstock. And then instead of going around with double-sided tape on that circle, if I'd have thought ahead of time, I probably could have done one layer with the score tape on over the whole panel. But I didn't, so I just took that glitter art glue and then spread it out, and then just was super careful on laying my panels down, setting something heavy on top, and walking away. So this sat overnight on top of my desk. I went to bed. So once I had that first layer done, I was like, I want it to be an ornament. So I hadn't planned on it being an ornament at first. I'd kind of planned on it being a card. And then I was like, you know, if I'm going into this much work for a full shaker front panel circle card, I might as well make it into an ornament. So I cut another piece of that holographic paper with the largest circle that I used for my card base. Now it's a little bit smaller than my circle frame is, and you'll notice that here. So I pulled in that green glitter cardstock from Crescent Creations and ran that through the die cut machine and got another frame that's pretty. So it'll have a green glitter edging to the back side when it turns around. And this one's not nearly as fussy as that top layer because I'm not dealing directly on the acetate. Granted, I want to be careful not to get glue on that acetate piece from the back side, as it will cause a little bit of clouding. Granted, at this point, I can still cover it up with my front piece that's going to go on the front of my thing. I'm going to, again, set some weight on top of that and set it off to the side. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to bring in my card base here and figure out the sentiment for the inside. And I do end up cutting this one apart. It's a longer sentiment in that ugly and bright stamp set, which I will be using for my creatures or my critters today. And so I tend to use those longer ones in bits anyway, so I don't hesitate too often to cut them apart. It's totally up to you. You can totally just stamp, selectively ink, clean it, and then ink again to get your sentiment split. Or you could stamp the whole sentiment, cut it out, and then add it, you know, cut that part of the sentiment apart, which I will show you I do on the front. So may your sweaters be ugly and bright is the inside sentiment. And then, so for this one, when I saw the stamp set with the ugly sweaters, I remembered I got the critters, the Say What critters last year, and that little reindeer in this one wears a sweater as well. And so this one is going to my brother and sister-in-law who just had a new baby this summer. And so they have a papa reindeer, a mama reindeer, and a baby reindeer. See, it's cute. Hence why it's going to be an ornament, because it'll end up hopefully on their tree. So if you are looking for that color guide, all of my still photos will be found on my blog at www.inkyandscrappy.com. And you can capture the color guides there. Sometimes I'm even nice enough and re-enter the number and lettering system. I will also include on my blog post the Copic, as close as I could get my Copics to match that color blend from my Ohuhus. So I will include that on my blog. I just need to remember to do that. So if it's not on there and you want it, make sure to leave a comment and I will make sure I update it. So I'm just going in with my Ohuhus here, darkest to lightest on that color. I wasn't totally worried about my color blend in the middle because they're going to be wearing sweaters anyways. So you'll notice my one on top. I did color the first one first because I wanted to make sure that my colors were going to blend well enough. I did not blend very great from the neck down because I knew that my sweater was going to cover that up and you weren't going to see it anyways. So if it doesn't look perfect, but it doesn't really matter because the sweater was covering it up. I wasn't concerned with that. I wanted my face to blend well and then just the little arms and the legs. The rest was just me practicing or playing. And then I'm going in with my reds here. I start with my darker tones and then work to the lighter towards the center. It adds to that rounded effect. I did come in with the black Jelly Glaze pen for the eyes and the nose, and then the white Jelly Roll pen for the little speckles on the fawn or the little baby or reindeer. And then for Mama's shirt there, she needed some glitz and glitter, so I did some Stardust Jelly Roll pen for the trim on her sweatshirt. And then I just do a little bit of touching up. Anything that went out of the lines, I touch up with that white Jelly Roll pen, and there are the images all colored. And then I matched up the die cuts because I actually have the die cuts for these. And yes, I smudged Papa's eye. So I wasn't happy with how my Jelly Glaze went on the eye, and if you wait until it dries, you can pick it off carefully with like a knife. And so that's what I did. And then I re-glazed it, and I liked it. And I didn't wait for it to dry. Yeah, I smudged it. So I'll save that one. I'll end up using it. I'll probably layer the head on top of it or something. So you haven't, I like to use my images. Even if I mess them up, I find a way to use them. So I decided Broken China went very well with my blend for my blues. And so I wanted that background panel to kind of mimic or match, coordinate well with my actual images. And I'm actually using the backside of that holograph paper here. And so I did spray it with a light mist of water. It was fine with the light mist of water. And then I was thinking about doing a paste through my stencil, and this is Lawn Fawn's Falling Snow stencil. And then I decided if I'm having clay bits in my shaker, I didn't want it to hinder the movement. So I came in with some white Yeti pigment ink. And then because it really wasn't dark enough for me, I like to go over it with some white embossing powder. And this will give a lot whiter look to those snowflake pieces, but it's still fairly flat and flush. Now, I probably overheated the one area, and I kind of show you it on the back. So if you are going to emboss on the back side of that holographic paper or even on the front side of it, I'd make sure your heat tool is either super hot and ready to go, or use a lower, slower heat to get it to go. Test the area on a scrap before you do it on the front side. I have not done that on the front side or the pretty side of it. So just, you know, for reference, it did heat set fine on the spots that I had my heat gun hot and ready to roll. It was that me not being patient enough for it to be hot and ready to roll and taking longer to heat set. So, and it really looks okay. I notice it because I know what I did. And so I do show you. It kind of dulled it just a little bit. You can't really notice it. The naked, you know, most people won't see it. I see it because I know what I did there, but it is what it is. The backside still looks pretty. Still holographic. And yes, I'll probably add a sentiment onto the back, like a handwritten year and baby's first Christmas or something like that on the backside there. So it'll be covered anyways. So for my little bit of snow, I hadn't decided if I wanted it on the front of my frame or on the back side of it. And I do decide to go on the front. Now, keep in mind that that circle is a little bit smaller than my frame, but you really don't notice once it's on the front of the frame. And I just took a thin layer of glue there and then smoothed it out and then made sure that it stuck very well to the front of my frame. And because I used the glue on the frame, I wasn't worried about it being, it's Lawn Fawn's pearlescent vellum. So it's not totally see-through like one would, like regular, like super thin vellum is. It's got a little bit more weight to it. And then I did add a drop of glue behind where I knew that one of my little reindeer was going to be sitting. And because I'm sitting on top of that acetate with these, I did some regular adhesive or dry adhesive runner where they were going to be touching that acetate piece, and then liquid glue where they're on top of the vellum. You could do just the dry adhesive, but I wanted to make sure that it was going to stick, it was going to stay together for many years, not just because I have issues with the tape runner dry adhesive always sticking well for a long period of time. That's why I tend to add that liquid glue just for a little bit of reassurance, I guess, on my part. Then it was the fun part, time to make my actual shaker. So I had a bunch of different ones to choose from. I ended up going with the Winter Clay Bits Mix from Crescent Creation shop. There's those jimmies in there. There's some Starlight candies in there. There was some snowflakes and some chocolate colored hearts. And of course, I needed to add some glitter from my stash and then some clear beads, you know, because you want your shaker to have a little bit of weight and bulk. Granted, the clay bits probably would have been just fine, but I like the noise, the added noise of those seed beads in there. And Neha does sell those in the shop as well. So I'm going to glue this on and I'm going to set that heavy weight on top and then wait for it to dry. So while I'm waiting for it to dry, I will do the sentiment on a piece of coordinating green cardstock and then heat set this. So I use VersaFine Onyx black ink and then do a clear embossing, a fine clear embossing powder over the top. I find I have much better luck with that black VersaFine and clear embossing powder than I do black embossing powder, so that's why I go that route. I did do it twice because I wasn't exactly sure how I wanted my sentiment on there. If I wanted it to be just straight across, hanging off the edge, or hanging down from where my string was going to go. And ultimately, I decided to cut it apart. To me, it was just more pleasing to the eye in cutout pieces than it was in one long sentiment on that circle. I did end up turning off my light so I could actually see if I liked where it was placed. There was just a lot of glare from that acetate on the top with the light. The problem of, filming. You need the light, but it blinds me sometimes. So I'm going to add that with some dry adhesive and then a little bit of clear glue, or a little bit of glue. The dry adhesive makes it stick to that vinyl and acetate instantly, and that the glue will actually hold it on there a lot better in the long run. And then for my card base, I'm coming in with some glue dots or glue-zots for my front panel to sit on, and I will come back to that one. I wanted super tacky Christmas ribbon, and I didn't have the right stuff, so I just ended up doing some mica spray stain in that new red Christmas color and candied apple red. And then I will let the ribbon dry, and then of course I had to pick up all of that extra goodness and make myself some red background panels because, I probably have a bunch of Christmas cards to finish yet. I'm going to come in with my cheapo electric drill from Amazon. I picked it up for it was like $15, just so I can pull that hole in the top of my ornament there. You could use a crocodile as well, or hole punch them before you actually put them all together. Would have probably been an easy route to go as well. I ended up using some Lawn Fawn twine for my little hanger, and then coming in with that seam binding ribbon and making a little bow. So I learned many years ago that you make 2 little loops and then you tie the loops together, and it'll give you a fairly good looking bow, like where your bows are on the top and your little ribbons are on the bottom part. I don't know, it usually works for me. I'm not great at it, so I struggle making bows. And I don't remember who taught me. They taught me at one of the Scrap Fest shows in Minneapolis. I'm sure it was one of the vendor booths that did. So whoever did it way back when, thank you. I still use that tip today. So I will add that with, I put a little drop of liquid glue on my ornament base there, and then I decided to go in with that sticky foam, or not foam, glue dot style adhesive, so it would stay on there and not, I always worry about the glue not sticking or holding it long enough because I'm not very good at staying in one place very long. So I made the glue dots on the front there a little less sticky by tapping my fingers to them. It's kind of like you dirty them up a little bit. And then you can just press your card base onto it, making sure your fold is in the proper spot. Now I only put them on the bottom half because I want them to be able to peel off that card backing. And so this way it peels off very easily and you can remove that ornament from it. And then here I am going in and adding my glaze eyes again, hope and a prayer. See, I waited to be all done so I didn't smoosh them and mess them up again. But that is my finished ornament / card shaker. It was a fun one to create. I'm going to have to do a couple more of those. Have a great one. I hope you visit Crescent Creation shop for all of your Christmas shaker mix needs, and that holographic cardstock is gorgeous.